women just have to realize their superpowers, I feel like, and really just tap into that. And we are, slowly but surely. There's more and more of us female chefs coming into the industry, which I absolutely love to hear about. So,
you're a chef and you're thinking about how to venture into the private chef space, how to set yourself up for success from resume to first interactions with your clients, as well as succeeding at the job. Our one-on-one coaching got you covered. Go to www.privatechef.cc and connect with me. Decades of experience can be your support to seize the next private chef opportunity. Welcome to the Private Chef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannah Hennche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef Podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Hennche. Today we're thrilled to welcome Chef Hannah Staddon as our special guest. Hannah is a full-time super yacht chef and the creator of the trending FunkyChef brand, providing chic, practical chef jackets tailored for women only. We'll talk about her journey as a yacht chef, the inspiration behind FunkyChef, the challenges of working and running a business, and driving force to keep her going. Thanks for joining us, Hannah, live from the BVI.
Hey, how are you doing, Hannes?
Great. So what was your initial inspiration to become a chef?
Wow. I never really grew up cooking at all. I was never interested in being in the kitchen, but I've always been a creative. So I've always been like involved in art and that kind of thing. I joined yachting when I was about 19. Obviously, I followed a boy, which is now my husband actually, and we run a boat together. But I followed a boy into yachting and was a stewardess for 2 years. And on my first boat, I was a junior stewardess, and I would often help the chef do pastry. It was an Italian owner, so we'd always have to have a crostata in the morning, and she hated baking. So I was like, oh, I'll do it, like at the end of my long day. I'm like, please, can I do it? It'll be so much fun. So I would try and do those as often as I could for her. And that kind of like started spiking my interest in it. And then after that season, my boyfriend, husband at the time, he got us a delivery. So we were doing a crossing from Roses in Spain to Antigua. And there was 4 crew plus me. So it was 4 guys and me. And naturally, I kind of took on the cooking role. But actually, I'd never cooked anything. Like I was phoning my mom being like, this, like having to provision, like, Mom, like what goes into a lasagna? And like, how do I make a roast chicken? Like, how does that work? You know, and all of these like basic things. So we did the crossing and I was seasick pretty much every day. Like I literally survived off Haribo gummy bears and, you know, would be like, bleh, and then make something and then bleh, and make something. And it was horrible. But at the end of it, I was like, wow, if I could cook and still feel seasick, maybe I should like do this, you know? And then I decided to save up for chef school. So my partner and I then did another season. I was still stewardess, but I was paying a lot more attention to the cook at the time, the chef, and saved up money and then put myself through chef school in 2015. So I went back to South Africa where my mum was at the time and did a year's training at a chef academy and then was doing kind of restaurants in the evening. So yeah, that's how my cooking career started. And naturally, my partner was still in yachting at the time. I just went straight back to boats. So yeah, that's where it all kind of started from.
That sounds actually pretty cool. It's like, hey, I think the coolest part of that is that the two are still together and running a boat.
Yeah, there was a couple of things in between. Like we, before I even went to chef school, after the crossing. We were like, oh, maybe we should go land-based. And we tried working at a boutique B&B in the UK where I was like a sous chef. So I was learning a lot from the guy that was the main chef there. But my husband was he was like host. And that means he had to like make bids. And he was not happy about that. He would wait in the galley until I was finished with breakfast and be like, okay, are you ready? We're going to go make bids together now. And I was like, oh, I just want to cook more. And then we tried doing a ski season in Pézy in France. Les Arcs. And again, we were just kind of thrown into this 15-man chalet, and I was to make breakfast and like afternoon tea and dinner. And afternoon tea, the cakes, I was definitely more sweet focused or sweet orientated, because I guess I'm just a sweet tooth, so naturally I gravitate towards that. But obviously with altitude, my mum had bought me this like book, I think it was called like Pie in the Sky or something, and it was like how to alter recipes to altitude. And I made this cake one day, it was a guy's birthday, and it just crumbled. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to make it again. So I made the cake 3 times. And my husband was so upset because he was like, Hannah, we're meant to be skiing here in between all of these things, you know, like, can we just go? So that was also in between doing the chef's course, you know, before I signed up to do the chef's course. So we've had a lot of adventures together.
That's fun. Maybe that's the binding component is the adventures together. It's like we tried this, and now you're on the open ocean.
Yeah, probably. And we've worked together now on the same boat since about 2015. So yeah, it's been great. End of 2015.
This is actually, again, this is why I love this so much. It's every time I ask people, there's like the potential for a different story, and this is so unique. I'm like, yeah, you know, actually I followed the boy, and then I learned how to cook, and I kind of fell into it, and then I loved it, and here I am, you know, and now you're making chef codes for women, you know, and I think it's such a unique and cool story. I love it.
Yeah, thanks. It's definitely, it's never something that I would have predicted as a youngster. I always thought I was going to go into marketing. So that was my path.
Well, now you ended up somewhat having to do your own marketing for the codes. I mean, building a brand is just about it's all about marketing. You know, it's getting yourself out there. And actually, this is something that I try to communicate with chefs: is marketing is being your own rainmaker. It's like you can be bottlenecked by agencies and contacts from families, or you can like create your own social media presence. You know, be out there and be a little bit proactive about being your own rainmaker.
100%. Yeah, that's definitely something I've learned within the last 2 years, I think, since starting FunkyChef. It's been a huge eye opener as to how much I can do for myself, you know, and how much I need to believe in my own brand. And I just need to keep plugging. You need it's a numbers game.
So the yacht that 2 of you are on, are you also responsible for that being sold out, or where is the business for the yacht coming from?
So the yacht is privately owned. And then we do the charters on the side. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we have an Instagram page, and we definitely get a bit of business through that. But obviously, it's a really high ticket item, so there's not a whole lot of business that comes through. Instagram.
But I even think that this is quite amazing. Imagine we're in a day and age where there is wealthy individuals who are using the same apps as you and me to kind of see what they're about to do on their next trip. And so, you know, and then basically they might end up maybe not directly booking, but finding a potential yacht trip, or even chefs. Like I've seen chefs from extremely famous people being hired over their Instagram account.
100%. This is your profile now. This is your CV. For chefs, you need to have an Instagram account that is showing what you're about, you know. And that's why I'm also really cautious to like put any kind of pictures, you know, that of the 2 minutes a day where I'm sticking my toes in the water. I'm like really cautious to put that kind of thing online, because that's also it's not really representing what I'm doing all the time, you know. It's more definitely food focused like 98% of the time, you know. So I think it's really it would be really wise of any kind of chef, if they're looking for work, to utilize Instagram for their benefit and really use it as a portfolio.
Yeah, I don't want to say you don't have a choice anymore. There is definitely a way to be more private. I just think it really helps to use those tools, especially if you want to create a situation where there is never any scarcity.
Yes, 100%.
So,
100% sure, you can go private account, but then people, naturally, when anybody is hiring, they will either ask for your social accounts or you'd be expected to give them, and if your profile's on private, everyone wants to know why, So yeah, I don't know.
And then you have all that nonsense there.
Yeah. I think it's just smarter to have an account that represents, who you are or how you are as a professional, and let people see that. Anyone that is, potentially employing you, let them see that. And then if you want to have a private one separately, that's fine. That's not maybe linked to your name directly or whatever. Then just do it smarter.
Yeah. So what are some of the most interesting stories that you've experienced on a yacht where you were like, I would have never thought I experienced this in my life?
Okay, well, one of them would be we were bringing the boat from Florida to the Bahamas. We're usually based between the Bahamas and the BVI or Florida. We only charter in Bahamas and BVI. And on the way, Dom, my partner, and I were, it's like a 10-hour, 12-hour cruise for us. So we were just doing different bits and pieces. Dom's obviously driving. And he was like, oh my word, Hannah, what is that? And I was like, looked at it. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, what are you? He's like, look, whale. So we drove up to this, he slowed down. We drove over to this, all the splashing that was going on. And it was a massive pod of orcas. There was 12 orcas there cruising around and smacking their tails. And orcas in the Bahamas, the water is so warm. What are they doing here, So that was an incredible experience that I never thought we would have because of, the unlikeliness of seeing orcas in the Bahamas. And it was really cool. Dom got this incredible drone footage. Whilst driving the boat, he was trying to fly the drone as well. And we submitted it to the Bahamas Mammal Marine Organization, and they were able to identify the pod of orcas based on their markings, on their spots. And they were like, we haven't seen this pod of orcas for 11 years. So it's incredible that you got this footage. And then there were science papers written about it and all of that. So it was really cool to be able to contribute towards that research. I'm just trying to think. We've obviously met some really interesting people on board. And we've been lucky with the people that we've had on board due to our size we're only a 65 footer. So we take 6 guests and it's just the 2 of us running it. We've met some really interesting people that have preferred not to be on bigger boats just because there's so many crew on there, and more to have a personalized experience just with us 2 and being able to get into more shallow spots and all of that kind of thing. So I would say that's definitely been a highlight of being in yachting, is being able to really connect with the people that come on and learn from them. That's been my biggest takeaway, is how much can I learn from these people? They're in this position and able to rent a yacht for a reason. So what can I learn? Yeah. Without being intrusive.
And that on a smaller yacht, you kind of, it could be magic or misery, it can be intimate in a good way, or it can be intimate in a bad way.
100%. Yeah, we're very lucky. We're very lucky with the guests that we've had on. There's been a couple that we will not be having back, and if they message us, I'm like, no, please don't try and book us again, But it's very few. We've been super lucky with the people we've had on, and they're all so generous with their time. And yeah, it's been, I think, just with the 2 of us, it's because it's so personal. We really get to know them, like friends. So it's really nice.
It also takes a certain chemistry. Sometimes I see domestic couple ads, and I'm like, do these still exist? But now I'm hearing. You and your husband, you're running a yacht together, which is kind of the ocean version of that in a more fun way, I would almost say. And I think it's a very rare breed of individuals that are willing to do that.
You mean to live and work together?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every job has its challenges, and I think every relationship has its challenges. I guess we know each other so well that it's just weird to be apart from each other as well, So when we did have the year apart whilst I was studying, it was definitely, I knew the industry, so I was comfortable with what he was doing and all of that. And he knew that I was just going to be studying and working all the time. So there was, we've got really
Yeah.
good trust, and we're just really honest with each other. So and we're both pretty down to earth and realistic. So we're just really good at communicating with each other, and we also are really good at laughing at each other and what's the word, like back chatting each other. So we just have a really good relationship in terms of communication and keeping things light a lot of the time. We also forgive really quickly. So that's also a major thing.
I think that's kind of where the magic happens. No, like you have to be able to reconnect so that it doesn't brew. And then,
Sure.
especially in a professional setting, otherwise it shines through. Like you can't hold a crutch on a small yacht while you're supposed to provide excellent service, and people are supposed to be there on a vacation.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely, if Dom and I have an issue, we tend to get it out relatively quickly, and I'm a person that wears my heart on my sleeve. So if I've got an issue, I need to say it and say it now, because I'm not going to be holding on to this for a long time. So yeah.
Nice. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your inspiration for your own chef line, so to say?
So basically, since starting chefing professionally, I always found that whatever chef jacket I bought, I always had to tailor. And it was because, it was generally a unisex jacket, or even the female jackets just like weren't fitted well. They were always super long, and I just never found that they fit me. So I always had to get them tailored. And I think it was about must have been before 2019. I was in Florida during a shipyard period, and I just decided I'm just going to buy my own material and find a seamstress and get her to make me up a couple of jackets, because I want them to be fun as well. I don't just want this boring pink that I can find in the shop and white that I will still have to get tailored anyway. So I bought some like crazy leopard print material and like watermelon material and denim, and took it to the seamstress in Fort Lauderdale, who measured me up and made the jackets to fit me, and they fit like a glove, and they were amazing. And I wore them to this event where I was private chefing for a boat show. And I got so many compliments. And when I posted some pictures about it, my friends were all like, "Oh my God, this is so cool. Like, where did you get this?" So I kind of figured I need to do this. How can I do this? And then it went kind of quiet for a while, because I had absolutely no idea where to start. Like, I don't know who to contact. How do I find a manufacturer? Do I go straight to China? Like, how do I even do that? And it went quiet for a couple of years, until a friend of mine was kind of like looking over my shoulder, and I was just like messing around with the Word documents that I was simulating to be a website, because I still had it in my mind but just didn't really know how I would even progress. And he was like, "Oh my God, Hannah, this is such a cool idea. Like, why? Like, let's do this. Like, I'll help you." He had time. "I'll help you." He's really good on the computer. So he started drawing the whole thing up and like working on it, which gave me like motivation that somebody else thought it was a really good idea and was like ready to put in work and like believed in the idea. So it really sparked the desire again. And that's kind of where the ball started getting rolling. And back when I was in school, I always loved watching, kind of the reason I kind of like the whole fashion side of it is I always loved watching, it was a design show where they got like 10 designers, and it was like, okay, you've got to make something out of all of the curtains in the apartment, and there was like these beautiful dresses being made. So I was always inspired by that, and always kind of would have loved to have become a fashion designer, but never really took it seriously. And that's kind of where the whole passion for designing something came in. So I have tons of drawings of different patterns and different, designs that I would have liked to have put on a chef jacket, but I was still kind of just at this crux of how do I even do that from a logistical side, and being on a boat. And, I definitely used my primary job as kind of a reason not to do it, because I was so involved in this. I'm like, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. So that's where the whole, kind of inspiration came from, kind of my design background and my friend really sparking an interest in it.
So do you see yourself, if you were to put a nail in your primary passion, would it be cooking or designing?
I would say designing. And not from a technical aspect, just from being creative and putting different arty things together in order to create something beautiful. And I feel like cooking is an extension of that, right? I mean, it's about putting beautiful flavor. When it comes to cooking, my favorite thing to do is like flavor combination and like creating flavors that people would never put together. So a carrot marshmallow or a beetroot ice cream, like things like that, where people are like, what? Oh my God, this is amazing, So that's my favorite thing to do on the like cooking side of things. And I feel that like filters into what I am doing now with putting different prints on jackets, where people are like, what, you are putting lemons on a jacket? Why would you do that? So yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about those leopard designs that are sold out. I'm like, how many chefs want those leopard designs?
Well, I know, I asked the same questions, but you would be surprised, who wants a luminous pink jacket with leopard spots on it? Some of the top celebrity chefs in LA and in California are buying these jackets and absolutely loving them and wearing them to their private chef events, and their catering and all of that. So there's actually a market. There's a market for this, and I love it because it's not just your simple white chef's jacket. It's just being creative, and all of these people, all of us chefs are creatives.
Actually, I think your market is, I'm not even sure if you thought about your total addressable market, but even just if I think about the US, how many female chefs out there who probably feel like they're misunderstood by chef codes and the makers of chef codes, and then
Sure.
how many actually celebrity chefs or chefs that just want a little bit different flavor. I think it's a sizable business.
Yeah, I would say the majority of our customer base, besides private chefs and yacht chefs, would be like, there's a huge trend of at-home bakers at the moment that, they're all maybe not necessarily trained, but they're just really good at what they're doing. And they're making these micro bakeries and personalized cakes and things like that. I've got a ton of girls in that situation wearing coats. I also feel like traditional chef coats may be intimidating to some people. Not everyone goes through training. A traditional chef coat kind of, I have no problem wearing any color chef coat, but it's maybe because I've gone through training. But I definitely know girls that haven't gone through training and feel like they're not, they've got like imposter syndrome. They feel like they're not qualified enough to wear a chef coat, like just a traditional chef white. So maybe something colorful like speaks to them, or something with a pattern speaks to them because they don't feel like they're an imposter.
It's interesting that you say that. And it's not that I have like the feeling that I don't know how to cook, but I prefer to wear these at work, even though they're not chef coats. But just because they don't look as formally white, like I'm some French head chef or something,
Sure.
like because I don't want to have that
expectation.
Yeah, maybe it's that more. Like I don't want to look like that fancy French chef or German chef in my case, but I just want to be the guy who cooks well.
Yeah, 100%, and that's what it is, right? When you put on a white, people are like, "Oh, chef," what are they gonna make? There's so much more expectation on you. Whereas if you put on something colorful and fun that you feel like represents you, or you're wearing your coat, you feel more comfortable, and you can probably blow expectations out of the water. And who doesn't love to do that? The guests are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing," and they take you seriously regardless of what you're wearing in.
Actually, you just hit it on the nail. I don't like it when they come into the kitchen and especially if there's guests that are not part of the house usually, and then they're like, "Oh, chef!" I'm like, that conversation is over right then and there if I don't wear the white coat. So it just doesn't happen. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So maybe this is actually what I don't want.
Yeah, there's nothing like making you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like do something crazy, when you're already planning something really nice anyway.
There's something really interesting that I kind of found it in one of the WhatsApp groups the other day. And people talk about performance anxiety even after decades of experience, like 15 years into our careers, 20 years into our, we still, like, there's new people on the charter, or, you know, we're serving someone else or this. And yesterday I was, one of my friends, I put him through his first trial in a private household. So he was like super nervous. And I thought it's kind of interesting because I'm like, I've been there. I'm like, if we put me on a new trial, I'll have more experience, but I'll still get that kind of feeling in my stomach. And then it depends. You can label it fear, anxiety, or excitement. But I find that so interesting that this carries throughout people's careers, no matter how much experience they have and how often they've been there.
Every week, if I don't know the guest, even if I know the guest, like, we just had guests on that they come every year. So, you know, they just came on for the 4th time and they're coming back in May. And like, I 100% get performance anxiety when they come on. They don't have high expectations. They don't want anything fancy, but I'm like, well, I need to make something new and I need to keep it interesting and exciting for them food wise, you know? So I 100% resonate with that. 100%.
So how do you keep going through that in your mind? Is that you're like having something new and exciting that hopefully lands, gets me through the promised land, or how do you deal with that?
I'll have a good cry every now and then, you know, that always helps. And I think it's just about, I love the kind of saying that risk leads to reward, but also failure. And I love the idea of failing because it just leads to growth, right? So it's just about taking risks, and I really enjoy doing that. And sometimes they will work and sometimes they won't. But on this last trip with them, you know, I definitely took a couple of risks and they loved it, you know. And they weren't complicated risks, and they weren't, you know, in terms of food, it wasn't complicated, but it was just things that I hadn't done for them before. And I was definitely nervous sending it out and what their reactions would be, but, you know, it was so worth it at the end. So I think I just really I really love taking risks because I like to grow and to learn to deal with that. And I think it's all about how we deal with that stress. And if we can use that stress to grow ourselves, I think that's the key. You just got to learn how you interpret stress and make it work for you instead of letting it work on you.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of emotional intelligence in one sentence here. Like,
yeah,
you know, it
100%.
started with the interpretation of the situation and like, okay, in what context is this happening? And then also turning it in inside your head in such a way that, you know, there is like learning potential, growth potential. And it seems from our conversation that you have a very growth-oriented mindset. Like, even when you have guests who are there to relax, you still try to observe and still try to learn and see like what put them into the position that they are in.
Yeah.
Given that they're traveling on a yacht.
Yeah, I'm super hungry to learn. And I feel like we're in such a privileged position to have access to people with these minds that have done the things that they've done, you know, and I feel like it would be such a waste not to learn from these people. And there's so many people, so many, you know, chefs and other yachties in this industry that, you know, just go through their career and earn money, but don't take advantage of the access that they have to these minds. And I think that's really my passion at the moment, is to just be a sponge and to absorb as much as I can and read the books that they're reading and understand things and ask them about their businesses. People love to talk about it, you know, people love to talk about themselves and love to teach someone that's actually interested and that asks them questions that are specific, and, you know, yeah, they love it. At least that's been my experience so far.
Sorry for the interruption. We will be right back. And if you're a chef thinking about venturing into the private chef space, this is for you. We coach you on how to set yourself up for success, from resume to first interactions with your clients, as well as succeeding at the job. Our one-on-one coaching got you covered. Go to www.privatechef.cc and connect with me. Decades of experience can be your support to seize the next private chef opportunity. There's something, it took me a little while to understand, but I've seen it. For example, Ray Dalio, he's like one of the richest investors in the world, but he's in a decade in his life where all he wants to do is share, and he doesn't share for the money. And I realized that everybody has a season of sharing, or many people have a season of sharing. And if you're lucky and you're the kind of person that shows the interest and the growth mindset that you have, then they're willing to pour themselves into you because they want to share. And I think that's where the magic really happens on both ends, because they know that a true mentee or a student who is really willing to grow and learn is just as rare as the mentor. Because
100%.
The majority of people are actually complacent with their situation, and they don't want to grow, they don't want to learn. And that there is a reason society seems a little bit lopsided, where there is always some rich haves and some don't haves. It's not always because the system is skewed, but like, for example, 88% of modern millionaires in the United States are self-made and not inherited. That means these people have learned the ropes. It means they might have read the tax code and seen that if you behave a certain way, you might get certain tax advantages, which doesn't mean that the rich are all crooks. It might simply, they might have, like, okay, the government incentivizes to act differently. So if we have a salary, we actually have a higher tax percentage. While if we act as business owner, we might spend more in total tax, but a lower percentage. There's all those different nuances to it. But it's just like people with a growth mindset are the ones ending up in that bracket.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so interested. So besides being really interested to learn, I'm really interested to help other women, especially in this industry, because, I'm here around lots of other women that have different ideas. I'm really encouraging of all of them. And I'm part of multiple different groups like Female Startup Club and Cherry Bomb and all of these kind of female founding kind of companies. And I'm so passionate about helping other women realize that they can definitely do it. You just need to be way better at managing your time, and you need to also be able to you need to be hungry, because if you aren't hungry, then I've got no time for you, because I can teach you as much as I know, and I do. As whoever asks me, I'm like, okay, how much do you want to know? Yeah. So I feel that I'm really hungry, and I definitely recognize it in other people. And then I'm super keen to share everything that I have to help others as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think A players, they are able to identify A players. Like, there are certain communities of people who excel, and they're not looking for other people that are not hungry enough to excel. Like, they want to surround themselves with people who are in that circle. I think that's actually really interesting. Like, I've always had the intelligence to put myself around the best chefs, but I realized that there's a distinction there. I was never that A+ chef student in that kitchen. Like, I was more like a very solid guy in the kitchen, but I wasn't the most hungry when it came to learning in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And it took me some time to make the distinction around that people have to self-select themselves to be that hungry. Some have a chip on the shoulder, but other than that, you just have to self-select yourself and be like the most driven person. And the interesting thing is, you don't have to be twice as good. You just have to be like 5% as good, and you stand out, and you'll get most of the rewards and the benefits of being just a little bit better.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, your product, or if you're trying to celebritize yourself or whatever. I think that's also really important. And I think something that on your previous podcast with Hannah Rose Yacht Chef, she was doing the chocolate, she mentioned something that, you can be you can be the best chef out there, but there's still so much to learn. So it's also about being humble and accepting knowledge and welcoming any other knowledge and different ways of doing things, because you never know when something's going to turn out better and how it can improve what you're already doing. So I thought that was important. That was a really good point that she made.
And I also think that attitude of cockiness, like thinking we are the best, it doesn't live in private, neither on a yacht nor in an estate. Like, it's something that maybe survives in a restaurant that's chef driven. And I think even there, it doesn't make for a great work environment.
No, I mean, I'm not the best chef, but I'm really good at what I do, right? And there's different things where, for instance, my chocolate chip cookies. Okay, Americans that come on board, they love a good chocolate chip cookie. And as simple as it is, I make the best goddamn chocolate chip cookies that they will ever have, okay? And then when they're like, oh my God, Hannah, these cookies are so good, I'm like, thanks. I'm not going to be like, oh, thank you. I'm not shy about it, because it is what it is. And it's the best one that they're having in this moment. Whether they have another good one another day, then that's great. I think it's important to be humble and to just embrace who you are, what your talent is, and just roll with it, because there's always someone better, there's always someone worse. And just to embrace who you are and what you are good at, I think that's the most important thing. And just being realistic and being able to laugh at yourself as well. Like, when I was making those, the last, couple of weeks ago, I was just making stories of myself on Instagram, what I was doing that day for lunch, and when my pitas were too hard and I couldn't fold them and I just smashed them and was like, okay, done. That's, I'm just laughing at myself because, hey, it wasn't working out and now it's working. It's going to work. And I feel like it's just important to be able to laugh in a situation like that and just not take yourself too seriously.
I think that's a good formula for life.
Yeah, 100%.
So how much longer do you see yourself on the ocean?
So I definitely think, going back to our kind of chat about, relationships on yachts and like how it works, and like with my husband and I'm 31, he's turning 33 this year. We've been in yachting for about 12 years. Is it 12 years? Something like that. And whilst we've been with these owners now since 2017, I think there's also a limit as to how long we want to spend in the industry, right? And my idea, everyone, I have this fear. I've got this great fear of, I've got multiple friends that have left the industry and they've had kids and the dad has to come back and he has to do rotation. They try and start something on land. And I've got this great fear about not being prepared to move onto land. Because it's an eventuality, it will happen at some stage. So I think the driving force behind FunkyChef was to start something before I leave yachting, so that I have some kind of security when I do move to land. As for when that'll be, who knows? There's always a timeline on women, right? As to when our body clocks will eventually I don't know, run out or whatever. But for the moment, we are definitely here for the next couple of years. We have really good owners that are the nicest people and are so generous with their time and their knowledge. They've really helped me develop FunkyChef and are instrumental in the running of FunkyChef. So yeah.
But they're not facilitating shipping for you while you're on the ocean. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they are.
What? Really?
They are. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's really wild. Again, super lucky and super fortunate to have found these people.
I think it's also, one thing that I keep seeing is that when people give their life to the right owners, whether that's an estate or a vessel, there's a sense of gratitude that somebody is willing to give their life to. There is people who don't see it like that. They just look at it as a transaction. I give you extraordinary amount of money for your time and you get to be in the BVI while I'm actually working somewhere else. But there are some people who see that it's not a simple thing to dedicate like 15 years or something to a family.
I never thought I would be in a position to be able to work for someone for this long. It's not something I've ever been like, oh, I need to find a job and work there for the rest of my life. And I think that a lot of yachties come into this industry thinking, oh, we just need to find, well, at least maybe half come into the industry thinking, oh, I'm just going to change boats until I find my unicorn owner, whatever that looks like to someone. But it's really just about being able to put up with someone's bad habits, like going into a relationship, right? Can you put up with their worst traits? Yes. Okay, cool. Well, then you can put up with everything else, right? Because everything else is great. So I feel like it's in a way similar to having an owner where, can you put up with their worst traits? Like, what are their worst traits? They fall asleep at 8:00. Like, if that's the worst trait, then, that's amazing. And I feel like working for these owners has been, well, we actually just stumbled across them, and it was really by chance that we bumped into them. And there's a whole backstory to that as well. But yeah, I think working for someone that appreciates you and all the time that you put in, and the fact that you're managing their, $3.5-4 million investment, obviously plays a big role in that. But yeah, it's just finding someone that is really grateful to you and verbalizes that, and monetizes and verbalizes that. And then, yeah, you have to be the type of person to be able to reciprocate and be, we're super grateful, and we're so excited whenever they come on, and we genuinely really like them as people, and we're just grateful to have them in our lives as mentors as well.
Wow. That's a kind of relationship that is, I think, I see it occasionally, but it's rare. So I'm very happy for
It's very rare. It's very rare.
Yeah.
All of our friends, I don't think any of our other friends have a relationship like we have with our owners, where we're actually excited to have them on board and excited to chat to them and excited to update them on what's going on, and for them to be helping me so much with the business as well. It's just unheard of. So yeah.
Yeah. But I want to touch up on one thing that you mentioned, that people have to go back on rotation, they try to go on land, and I think this is actually, it's a common theme where we get used to our income. The income is so based on being available somewhere else than where we want to be. And the minute you kind of take that one willingness out of the equation, which is being in a place that someone else determines, the income potential dwarfs potentially. Sure. And I think, but I think it's so important for chefs just like yourself, don't start thinking about that. Even a year before you try to exit is too short. We have a level of income that ideally can put us in a position where we can invest our time and money in a better transition plan. And whether that's building a business on the side, which I think is great, or at least get the money to work that we earn. If especially if we're a couple and both earn yachting income, okay, that's some pretty good money, while the expenses can be kept in check, that can work towards that in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I'm all about that. We save every penny that we can, and we have some investment property, and are really, yeah, I know, yeah. My husband is really good with investments and managing his money, and he's at a really good point in his financial life or whatever. So I'm I guess a bit further behind, because naturally when I was younger I was spending frivolously and not really saving anything. But in the last couple of years I've really been hampering down and have really good savings now. So I'm not worried in that sense. It's just always scary when you move to land, because all of a sudden you have all of these expenses that you're not used to having, and then definitely not earning the income that you would usually be used to earning. So our main I guess theory is to just live as poorly as possible, which is obviously not appealing to anyone, but just living within our means and not buying spending frivolously or whatever, and we don't anyway. But, I think that is just the thing that catches most people. They carry on living their lives the same way that they've been living when they've been on the boat and going out for expensive meals and buying a bag and whatever. And I think it's just important to not be doing that on the boat, and then moving that kind of mindset into land shouldn't be as much of a shock then, because you don't have as many expenses going out in theory. Practice is always a bit different. But yeah, we've definitely got some good plans in place for when we do transition out.
Mm-hmm. So what's kind of your favorite read? And I want you to particularly think about something that could resonate with females, because I feel like this topic is maybe even more relevant for them.
So this is going to sound really odd, but it's a book called Who Said Elephants Can't Dance? And it's by Louis V. Gerstner, I think it is. And it's basically about IBM and how, which again sounds a bit silly, but it was just about how IBM kind of decentralized their decision-making and gave it to the individual departments. And that's what kind of saved the company. And I don't know why, but that book has been the one that's really stuck with me. Because it was about making decisions easier in order to keep something alive and to take risks in order to grow. And I think that it's so important that anyone, including women, that are really, us women, we really have a superpower that a lot of us haven't really even uncovered, because we're so good at multitasking. There's so many things that we can be doing and investing in ourselves, but we kind of hold ourselves back because we feel like it's very overwhelming. So we don't break down the steps. And put them into bite-sized chunks in order to achieve them. So that was a really good book in kind of a business sense. Let me think of another book. I read a lot of World War II stories, which aren't really appropriate in this situation. I think another book that I was really inspired by was Shoe Dog. I don't know if you've ever read that one, but that was the story of Nike. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, that was a really good story as well of, how Nike kind of became. So yeah, I don't really have a story that's specific to females, and I don't think there really should be, because, we're all, we should all be equals in that sense. And yeah, women just have to realize their superpowers, I feel like, and really just tap into that. And we are, slowly but surely. There's more and more of us female chefs coming into the industry, which I absolutely love to hear about. So
yeah,
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it was more so about kind of, for one, I've never heard of Who Said Elephants Can't Dance, so I love that part. And the other one is that, my brother has always been smart with his money. I was the entrepreneurial one in out of the three of us, so I became smarter with money, and it kind of rubbed off of my sister. And the interesting thing is, from the get-go, my sister was actually the highest earner out of all three of us.
Oh.
But she had the lowest saving and investment rate. But she had a very good lifestyle. But then the conversations kind of rubbed off on her. And she just feels strongly about being around women, or groups of women who are conscious about what they do with their money, financial independence. And she says it's more powerful for her to be in a group only of women than it is to be part of a cohort in a mentorship system where there's also a bunch of men in it.
Sure. Yes. Okay. I definitely agree with that. And there's multiple groups that, like I say, that I'm a part of that are just for women, that are empowering women. And Female Startup Club, I don't know if you've heard of them, have been like instrumental. They've been a really good resource for different things. It's run by a girl called Doon Royson, and she's Australian, and she's an incredible resource. And yeah, my owner also is an incredible resource. She's very intelligent, and so hands on the ground, knows so many different things. And with her launching a product as well, I'm going through a lot of the same things she is. So I can tap into her a lot as well. But then, it sounds silly, but on Instagram, there's a ton of pages that are about women saving money and what their expenses are like this month and how to save money with whoever. I can't think of any specifics at the moment, but there's a ton of resources out there for women specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, and again, this comes down to who wants to grow and who doesn't. Like, there is people who just want to do their job, take their paycheck, and they take it to the trusted source, whatever that is, Social Security and maybe a 401k. Maybe if they've read a little bit more, they have an IRA, a Roth IRA or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a small group of people who want to take this into their own guidance, no? And I think it's never been easier to be well educated. Like, this used to be country club kind of stuff, like where you needed to know somebody to know something. But now it's out in the open. It's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, and like, at least occasionally I want to throw it at other chefs, like, it's your responsibility. And the same actually goes for health. Like, I'm just going through like a series of surgeries. And what I'm realizing is nobody is interested in my health more than I could be. Like, so if I'm not interested and I'm not digging for the better doctors, and if I'm asking not better questions, the next doctor might just think of paying off his mortgage and he will do some procedure, whether it's in my best interest or not.
Yeah, 100%. I'm also going through a series of surgeries, which I can relate to. I have really bad endometriosis, which is like growths on my ovaries, etc. And hence why the jackets will, when I eventually start making a profit, will donate a portion to the Endometriosis Foundation of America to support that research. But I understand. If you don't have wealth, you don't have. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. Yeah. So you have to invest in yourself before you do anything. And that's also been a big turning point for me, because I've always always had like up and down weight fluctuations, and I've never really looked after myself. But the last 2 years, I've really started taking my workouts and my eating seriously. So I'm in the best shape of my life, I feel. And, whether I'm on charter or not, I always make it a priority to give myself at least half an hour or an hour a day if I can. So, yeah.
Yeah. Another big topic for chefs, like, take care of yourself, guys.
Yeah, what is the point? If you're like a chef in a restaurant and you're super overweight, like, what are you even doing? Like, you're just wasting your life in a dark place on this constant hunt for perfection, which we all know never comes, right? It's strive for perfection that never happens. And what do you get out of it? You get nothing. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
I actually think that a lot of people in the Michelin star world, especially, they have a chip on the shoulder, and that's their vehicle, and they have a very unhealthy relationship to it. And there's very 100%. Few individuals that I admire there for how they've kind of managed to transition into a healthy family life and like see that their career is not the meaning of life, as much as they made it to be, and as much as maybe some culinary magazines want us to believe that.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And, there was a situation that actually happened when I was studying. It was 2015. I was trying to decide what direction I kind of wanted it to go in, because I wasn't necessarily going to go to the yachts. I was really enjoying my restaurant work that I was doing, and I was chefing at a restaurant called the Test Kitchen, which was at the time was number 28 in the world. But you know how the shifts work, right? It's a lunch and a dinner shift, and for a lunch shift you have to be there at 7 a.m. So much like your story, I was having to travel for about an hour to get there, but I had to leave early because of the traffic. So I'll be leaving at 5, getting there at 7, working a shift until we weren't allowed to leave, right, until the last person was finished cleaning their station. So it would be like 12 o'clock sometimes with an hour's journey home. And I was still deciding kind of which direction I wanted to go in and take chefing in. And I saw an advert for a CDP, a job as a CDP at the Fat Duck in the UK with Heston Blumenthal. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to apply and see if I could like get in. And I got so the one night I was driving home, and it was late at night, and I was going really fast. I'm a fast driver because nobody likes to waste time driving. And I hit a duck. A duck smashed my window. I had to pull to the side of the road, and the thing was definitely not in a good way. And I drove home. My mum was waiting up for me, and she's like, oh my God, Hannah, your windshield is smashed. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm fine. I'll just get it replaced tomorrow. I'm so tired. And in my email inbox, there was a message from the Fat Duck saying, we would love to have you on board as a CDP at the Fat Duck. And I was like, oh my God, no, this is a sign. This is a sign. I smashed the duck. I'm not going. And whether it is a sign or not, you know, even having spoken to my chefs at the school, you know, they were like, Han, you're literally going to be weighing microgreens for the first year. Like, there's no ways you're even going to get close to a stove. Like, if that's the direction you want to go in, and if that's what you see, if that's what food is to you, then absolutely. But I'm not about that. I guess, was true to myself in thinking that I just want to give people really good experiences, and I don't need to be that kind of chef, which, you know, I take my hat off to anyone that can be, but to do it healthily and to put yourself first is a huge challenge, like in that kind of environment.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like those are the chefs that should be celebrated. Like,
yeah, 100%.
I want to see the people that don't freak out, and then somebody comes around with a camera and thinks that's amazing. I want the people that are calm, are like a monk, and say, just do it again, and keep the composure, and they don't, and everybody still eats excellent food. You know, I would like to see those chefs being celebrated.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's no there's no real there's no real showcasing of chefs that just make really good food that people really just enjoy eating. I guess they make cookbooks, or I don't know. There's just not really any real advertising for chefs that just do a really good job, unless you become a celebrity or participate in a cooking show or something like that. So,
you know, it just made me think of Gladiator, you know, where he is a really good sword fighter, but he kills too fast. So you have, you know, are you not entertained? And you have to entertain, and you have to be dramatic, and then you're a crowd pleaser.
Sure. 100%, yeah. If you don't have personality, then what are you even doing as a chef, right? Although, let's get serious. All chefs have to be a little crazy to be able to withstand like a kitchen, or, you know, it can be a very isolating job, especially in the yachting world. If you're by yourself, you're in your own department and that kind of thing. Definitely a very isolating job, and we all get a little crazy, some more than others.
That's for sure. It feels like everybody could have a therapist in their corner almost.
Yo, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, Hannah,
instead of talking to ourselves, we'd be talking to our therapist. That would be amazing. Can the boat pay for that as well?
should be part of the general expenses, no? Therapy for the crew.
Yeah, charter expenses. Yeah.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you, find out more about FunkyChef Collection?
So we're on Instagram at FunkyChef Co, and then we have a website, www.funkychef.co.
Co, not like .com.
So that is where you can find them. Yeah, .co.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to add those in the show notes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks again. This was very wide-ranging, super interesting, very unique,
awesome.
Very diverse.
I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.